Well, my name is legally Carolyn with a K, Sue Foreman. When I met Steve, first time, 1958, in the Broward Hall dormitory lobby at the University of Florida, I was Carolyn. We were 17. My brother was in his same fraternity at the time, a year older than me, but it was the University of Florida, and it was 1958. So we double dated for a year, and I dated his big brother in the fraternity. And my job was to get Steve, my friends, to date, get him date so that we could double date, because Steve was from out of state and had a car. So I'm dating the big brother, and Steve's in the back seat with the whatever girls I could find to date him, so that we could drive in his car any place in Gainesville. Is that just the craziest story you've ever heard? So we switched. In our sophomore year, we started dating. And when my parents met him, we were at his fraternity, my brother's fraternity, in the lobby after a football game, and we're standing there wondering, where's Steve? Where's Steve? All these people are on this patio, and we look at this commotion across the street, and whoa, there's Steve over there, coming across the street. And which one is Steve? Well, he's the one that they're carrying, because he is so drunk he can't walk, and he's wearing a three-piece suit, nice Indiana suit with a vest. And they carry him through the crowd on the patio, up the stairs, and throw him into a shower. That's how my parents met him, and of course they thought he was fabulous, because he fit right in with the family ethos, which is be drunk. It's a good thing. Well, we got married. We got married in a fever between our junior and senior year. And then we had 10 years that were playing house, lots of drinking, and lots of pretending things were fine. And after 10 years, we decided that we really should get a divorce because we were so incompatible. We were married, we like to say, 64 years, and at least 40 of those were happy. So we were happily married for some period of time, but not this period that I'm talking about right now. This was miserable. And so we're going to get a divorce, but before we do, we're going to go to these counselors. So we went to 5 different counselors, and then he went to one alone, and I went to one alone, so we were getting all kinds of advice. We're sitting with other couples, and there was a couple across the circle where the wife is pouring booze down the sink, and the guy is saying, I'm not drunk. And so I'm watching them, and I'm really quite stunned, because the story they're telling is my story. And I never, until that moment, thought that alcohol could have any effect on our relationship. About 1974, after having this experience in this group counseling, I went to an Al-Anon meeting because I had some glimmer that something was wrong. And I also started going to Bible studies, not because I wanted to be religious. I just thought if there was any kind of a power that would get him straightened out, then I was going to see if I could get some. I was just shopping for something that would take that rock out of my chest. I suppose suicide crossed my mind, but I wasn't about to leave my 2 little children. I was married to this really narcissistic, drunk, mean guy. Self-centered and just it was very lonely, very lonely. Steve did die just 2 weeks ago from now. I've had a lot of people send me notes that say, I'm so sorry for such a hard time. This is such a difficult time. And it is so much not as difficult as it was 40 years ago. And at some point, I was going to just jump. I was jumping out of that plane. But I had my parachute packed. And I was just waiting, because I kind of sensed that under that disease was a really fine fellow. And if I divorced him now and then he sobered up, I would really be unhappy with myself. So I did that for a while. And he went to a meeting then about 2.5 years later, came back and said, well, I went to this meeting and the oldest guy in Alcoholics Anonymous was there, and he's been sober longer than I've been alive. He's missed out on so much. And I'm thinking, oh. And so he decided that he would test. He would show me he wasn't an alcoholic, that he could drink 2 drinks a day. And I'm thinking, 2 drinks a day, how much is a drink? And so I go to the cabinet and I pull out one of these little jiggers. And I said, well, that line there is 1 drink. And he said, oh, no, the line isn't a drink. When you buy a drink, the bartender fills it up, and then he pours a little bit more when he puts in. That's a drink. And so I said, all right, so whatever. You can have 2 of them a day, and if you never have 3, then we know that you're not an alcoholic. So he comes back a couple days later, and he's bought 2 tumblers that are like big gulps. And he's decided this is the first drink, and he would have that glass at home, and he would take the other one to the office, and that would be his second drink. And you could pour a whole bottle of scotch in there with 2 ice cubes. And that was drink 1 and 2, and he could never have more than those one day, and that would prove to me that he wasn't an alcoholic. So he did that for about 1.5 years or 2, and in January 78, he woke up right after the Super Bowls were in January at that time in 78. So he woke up one Monday, and the thought crossed his mind that other people just didn't drink like he did. And so he, according to his story, he calls the AA main office and asks for the guy named Clarence. And I guess I will be eternally grateful that his name wasn't Bob. Because, where's Bob or where's John? You're not going to find him. But a name like Clarence, they knew exactly where he was going to have a meeting. And so Steve originally would say that he put on his invisible suit because it's shameful. And he went to this meeting, and the only empty chair was next to Clarence Snyder. So at that moment, I am somewhere else doing my parallel life, paying no attention to him whatsoever. And he follows Clarence around for a couple months, and Clarence takes him through the steps. And he comes home, and 2 months later, he goes to the first retreat at the time. So Clarence says, come to this retreat and spend from Friday to Sunday and do the steps again. So he does that. And he comes back, and I'm in the kitchen of our other house, and he drives by in the driveway, and he comes in the back door. And when he walked in the door, he was about 30 feet away, and he's putting his stuff down. And I swear to you, from there, not even knowing what he'd done, not even speaking about it, he looked different. To me, he was a different man from 30 feet away. And he had spent many, many, many episodes of saying, I'm never going to drink again. But usually he was really quite plastered and holding himself up when he'd say, I'm never going to do this again. But he said, I'm not going to drink again then, and I knew it in my soul. Something in me said, well, fine, he's good. But immediately he looked at me and said, well, you're not good enough. You need to be fixed too. So he said, you need to go over there and have Clarence take you through the steps. Because whatever I had done before, of course, it wasn't going to be quite good enough. Because we do tend to judge each other about the quality of the faith. You say, well, you say you're a Christian, but you're really maybe not. So I really didn't think I needed it, but I went because he said, and I was really curious. And so Clarence actually took me through the 12 steps in one afternoon. So we become then, from 79 to 84, we become Clarence and Grace groupies. We go to every meeting, we go to the retreats, we help them with the retreats, we travel with them. We engage with our kids with them. We have people over, lots of picnics, lots of events and dinners. But what I learned between 1979 and 84 was that I could have a good time. I could have some fun we could go to parties and I didn't have to drive home with, he didn't have to throw up on his shoes, and there are all kinds of good things, and that people made sense all night long. It was wonderful. You could talk to people and they were nice all night long until you leave. So that was a fabulous time. But then in '84, Clarence was not well. He was at the hospital in Winter Park, and Grace called us at home. We were in Altamont Springs and said that Clarence wanted to see us, and he said they wanted to transfer the mantle of the retreats to Steve and Sue. And I listened to that and said, Sue? You know, me? And he said, absolutely. He said, this is a family disease. We got sick together, we get well together. And it's really, both of you are necessary we're really transferring this responsibility to the two of you. And so they hugged us, we prayed, we were on our knees, they're praying for us, and we say goodnight. And at 11 o'clock, Clarence died that very night. Steve and I and several others, we picked up doing the retreats from then on. We had 6 of us that were running retreats, the Rapps, the Morfitts, and the Foremans. And we realized that we needed to write down what Clarence had taught us. So we met right here in this house for 4 or 5 days. I have some pictures that I took from that loft up there of us sitting at this table with the counters full of all the papers that we had collected, all of the outlines and the attempts to deliver this message. And so we came up with the book, The Legacy Guide, and we continued to use the book and start more retreats. So we were at a point in 2010 where we were trying to run 2 retreats here, and there were 30 some retreats around the United States, and there were a half dozen that were going on in the UK and Ireland. The leaders of these different retreats kept asking for more support. So we met in 2015 at the Leesburg grounds with about 35 people. I still have the picture of all of us. And these were the speakers and the retreat leaders coming together to say, how can we move this? How can we support one another? How can we improve the quality? How can we improve the follow-up and get some uniformity so that we can bring new people in? And so we decided we just have to form some kind of a nonprofit. And so we did that in 2015. So we wanted to find a way to pass it on. So we formed this nonprofit that we now came to believe Recovery. And now we're sort of 2025, where it's 2025. 1/4 of the way into the 21st century, and we're wondering, is it possible, really, to understand addiction to the point where you can eliminate it? Can it really be fixed? And everything that we have seen is that maybe they're going to come up with some chemical, but you're still going to be on a chemical. What we see is that it can be changed with a spiritual awakening. I'm not addicted to a particular chemical, but I am addicted to behaviors that keep me safe and that make me feel better. They're different behaviors for everybody. Sometimes it's gambling, and sometimes it's shopping, and sometimes it's watching video games or anything, just watching movies or anything that will keep you from having to be inside yourself. But the steps heal whatever that is that goes wrong, that makes you feel like you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're not safe, you're not seen, you're not significant. Those are the things that really drive people to have to get something else to fix that. We're looking for the collective impact. We think we've got answers that work. When I see what happens to someone when they have a faith in a God, a loving God, when I see what happens to them, when nothing else no therapy and all these other things don't seem to work, but you add the power of a loving God, and then all the rest of the things work. It's not that those things don't work. It's just that they're not plugged in. They're all quite, your chainsaw is absolutely ready, but it has no power until somehow you add a belief in a higher power, and then it all seems to work. We have the secret sauce. There seems to be what we were taught by Clarence is what was learned in the 30s. And they had no recovery before this happened. And so it went along for a while, and now we look like we're on the verge of actually being able to make an impression. So we need to have the resources to develop the tools to get that delivered. And that's what we visualized in 2015 when we said together we might be able to make a bigger impact. I don't think we visualized the impact that we could make until now. Steve was very committed. He really liked making money. He liked making the deals. And the reason he liked it is because then he had money to put in to this and to the recovery centers and to the recovery center, that the Spirit of Life and the different places, because he knew it would work. And he was so grateful for what it did for him. He wanted other people to have it. The time really is now. It is so ripe to make a real impression. And that's why we give. That's why we continue to work. And it's why we really ask other people to contribute as well.